Hello everybody. This is the second video in our series on the Sony DFS-700 video switcher from 2000. In the first video about this switcher, we went over what a video switcher is actually used for and why it's a crucial component in television production. We explained the use of program and preview feeds and the importance and challenges of genlocking. We then saw a basic demonstration of the switcher, covering basic switching and an introduction to this switcher's rich catalog of effects. And then we ended with a demonstration of the color matte generator, the memory function, and the color correction function. In today's video, we're going to get into the more advanced functionality. We're going to cover keying. We'll demonstrate the downstream keyer using a makeshift character generator. We'll look at the advanced effects the switcher can perform on a video source, as well as when transitioning between sources, and we'll look at making your own effects. But a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. First, I need to correct a rather large mistake I made explaining something in the first video. I talked about how this is a single ME switcher, and because of that, we can't do something like a two-box effect that you might see on a news program. Both of those things are true. This is a single ME switcher, and it is incapable of making a two-box effect. But it's not incapable of making that effect because it's a single ME switcher. I confused MEs, mix effects, with DVEs, or digital video effects. Making a two-box effect, or otherwise manipulating two video sources on the screen at the same time, does not require a second ME. It does require a second DVE, which this switcher also doesn't have. An ME is basically this set of buttons, a program bus and a preview bus. A 2ME switcher will actually have a second set of these bus keys. And it'll also have a second set of controls for things like keyers. And it basically creates a switcher inside of a switcher. For example, with a 2ME switcher, I could squeeze myself down into a box and then use the second ME to perform mix effects inside that box and maybe key something inside that box. And when I grow myself back up, whatever effects I've applied carry with it. Think of it as being able to work with an additional layer or nest of layers in your program. With a single ME switcher like this, the best I can do is cut between sources inside the box because the one ME is already tied up by simply displaying what's in the box and whatever's behind the box. A DVE provides the ability to perform effects in the first place, like transitions, squeezing into a box, color correcting, and the like. Having two DVEs allows you to manipulate two video sources simultaneously, which includes making a two-box effect. This was demonstrated to me recently on our Ross Carbonite Solo switcher, and that's how I learned I made the mistake. While the Solo is indeed a single ME switcher, it has two DVEs, which means we can make two boxes with different video sources inside of them and manipulate those boxes independently. But this switcher is single ME and single DVE, so we can't do that here. The expansion card that Sony sold for this switcher adds a second DVE, not a second ME like I said in the first video. We don't physically have a way to control a second ME, even if we did. I regret making this error in the first video, and I hope this clears it up. Next, I want to make an addendum regarding genlocking. In the last video, I talked about how you can cheat one non-genlockable composite video source into working on the switcher by looping the composite output into the genlock input on the switcher. And I used a Blackmagic analog to SDI mini converter as an example, but alluded to the fact that it actually doesn't work that well using that particular converter. The reason is because there's a delay between the input and output video signals. Of course, it has to digitize the incoming analog video signal and then convert it to SDI. So the resulting SDI video signal is slightly out of time with the original composite signal. And it makes some strange things happen. So this is what happens when you try to use the Blackmagic analog to SDI converter and cheat the Genlock by running a composite camera as a Genlock source and then Genlocking into the unit. Oh dear, my High 8 Handycam has begun its demo mode. Anyway, wow, somehow it going into the demo mode, oh, it's doing this, it doesn't like that. But what I just saw for the first time was the chroma phase on the preview. Went really messed up. It's okay right now, but it was messed up for a second there where all the colors were wrong. But if I cut it to the, holy shoot, if I cut it to the SDI program output, you can see it becomes black and white. And I'm guessing the picture rolling must be due to this as well, and not being able to Genlock. So there you go. That's what happens if you try to cheat Genlock with a device that you really can't cheat with, because there's a delay between the composite signal and the resulting SDI signal. Today's video requires me to get a composite, or more specifically an S-video signal working on this switcher. And I've managed to do that using a new piece of equipment. Let me show you. This is another piece of equipment that we retired from the station just a few months ago, actually. It is a Pro Max DA Max Plus media converter. This is a great big and very versatile video standards converter. And actually it works with audio as well. This big box can take composite, S-video, component, SDI, or DV video and convert it to composite, S-video, component, SDI, or DV. That's amazing, and all the outputs are active simultaneously. It obviously can only convert one input at a time. You choose whatever input you want, but it'll send it out all the outputs simultaneously. And this thing can also convert audio. It can take analog audio in the form of RCA or XLR, or digital audio in the form of XLR, and convert it to analog RCA or XLR audio or digital XLR audio. That is pretty amazing, and actually right now as I look at this, it would appear that it can send digital audio through these RCA jacks here. So I don't know if that's SPDIF. If it is, that's amazing. This thing is just so versatile. And here's why it's going to make today's video work. I am going to be using a Windows PC as a makeshift character generator. I'm going to run the VGA output of the PC into a Kramer VP502XL scan converter. It takes a VGA computer signal and converts it to composite and S-video. So I'm going to run the S-video output of that Kramer converter into this box, and this box is going to give me composite video out and SDI out. And remember, this switcher, another one of the challenges besides everything needing to be Genlocked, is it can only accept SDI and component signals in its base configuration, and this is in its base configuration. So we take our SDI out, and that goes into one of the camera inputs on the switcher, and then we take our composite output and run it into the Genlock input on the switcher. So the switcher is going to be Genlocked to this. So even though I have no way to properly Genlock a computer VGA signal, I am able to use that the composite output, or rather the S-video signal from that computer that came from that computer VGA signal as a Genlock source, because all the outputs on this Pro Max DA Max Plus converter, all the outputs are synchronized to each other. So it is frame perfect across all of these outputs. So we can properly cheat the Genlock, unlike with the Blackmagic converter. So it's thanks to this guy that we'll be able to demonstrate keying today. Other than that, our wiring setup today isn't too much different. You can see I've changed the monitors around here. We don't really need program and preview video monitors anymore for what we're doing today. For basic switching, it's really important. But if you were using this thing not for basic switching, but purely for the effects, really all you need is a program monitor. So I've got the venerable Sony Trinitron CVM1271, and that's being fed from the composite program output. And the SDI program output will once again go into that portable Sony DV-Cam VCR to provide a feed for you guys to look at. And I'm going to be using at least one of these Panasonic convertible cameras. These cameras are nice because not only do they have an SDI output if you have the option installed, but it also has a Genlock input, so it makes it really easy to interface with this switcher. I did have one of these. I recently grabbed a second one from the storage room. We actually had 3 of them. One of them turned out to be completely dead. But the second one works, so I'm not sure yet as of this scene if I'm going to hook up 1 or 2. I may do just the one, but I've got 2 of these if I want to use them, and then I've got our Windows PC as a makeshift character generator. So Genlock's going to be fed to 1 or both cameras depending on how many I hook up. They go into the SDI inputs. This thing goes into the SDI input, and then the composite output is the Genlock source. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, here we go again. So I actually did make a bit of a change. I did connect a second camera, and as you can see, it's pointing at a clock. I did this for a specific reason, and I chose this specific clock for a specific reason. It's because it's got a relatively dark, it has white numbers and white hands and a relatively dark background behind it, because it is going to be the subject of my first trick, which is to do luma keying. Luma keying is when you key something based on luminance values, which is the brightness. So it doesn't involve color at all. It's purely the brightness of the subject, of the signal. And luma keying was the earliest form of keying. They were doing it as far back as the 1960s, if not earlier. And before the days of electronic character generators, people put titles on television by actually using a physical model. Like they had a black like magnetic board or felt board or something, a black board, and then white letters that they would stick on it to write out what they wanted to say, and then they'd luma key it and only the letters would show up on the screen. So we've got our clock here. So I'm going to key out this clock using upstream keying. Now this switcher doesn't really have discrete upstream and downstream keyers. It does have a discrete downstream keyer. It really doesn't have a discrete upstream keyer. What it has is what's called a title keyer. And this can kind of be used for either upstream or downstream keying. Its primary intention, going by its name, title, is to put titles on the screen, so sort of downstream keying, but you can also perform upstream keying with it. So, to do this, the first thing we have to do is set what video source is going to be our title. Now, I referred to these keys in the last video, just briefly, and we briefly did like the memory function and the color correction and stuff like that. So this first row right here, these are called auxiliary keys, and then the row of small keys above it are called delegation keys, and just about every video switcher has these. These are as common as the program and preview keys. So your delegation keys are to select a function, and then you use the auxiliary keys to say what video source you want to be used for that function. So if I press the memory button, I know that camera 1 is set as the video source for memory. The title 1 keyer source, I have camera 2 selected as the title 1 source, because that's camera 2 is that clock which we want to key out. If I wanted to use color correction, I could choose whatever camera I wanted the color correction to be performed on. These two keys here, super background and foreground 2, those aren't functional on this switcher. They would be if we had the option card installed to add the 3D effects. So, title 1 source, I want it on camera 2. Perfect. Next thing I need to do is put the switcher into title mode by pressing this button. And now, instead of program and preview, we are finally using these bus keys the way Sony named them for this switcher, which is background and foreground. What do I want in the foreground? I want the clock, so camera 2. What do I want in the background? Sure, let's use my face here, camera 1. And I'm just going to hit cut, and when we're in title mode, hitting cut or doing a dissolve or some other transition no longer swaps these two sources. It's simply going to put whatever's on the foreground bus on top of whatever's in the background bus. We are no longer program or preview as in normal switching. We are now background and foreground. So I'm going to hit cut, and there's our clock. And I am behind it. You can see here, let me go back to normal mode here. So in normal mode, your program keys are red and your preview keys are orange. Red means you're on the air. Orange means you're going to be on the air after you execute a cut or a transition. Go back into title mode here. Our foreground's not on the air yet. I hit cut. Now they're both red because they are technically both on the air. You just can't see me behind the clock yet. So, what do we do to key out this clock? So, in our title key section here, you can see we have a title 1 and a title 2. 2 is not functional. You need the upgrade card for the second DVE to make that work. So we've got just the one title. And you can see we have 3 keys here. We have Loom for Luma key, CRK for Chroma key, and Mask for Mask. So the first thing to do when you want to perform a key like this is you usually want to mask out anything that's outside of the general area of the key itself. And you can see on this clock, you know, we've got this green plaid background around the numbers, and then you can actually see a little bit of the wall behind it. And I want to get rid of that crap because it'll only make keying harder if I don't. So I'm going to hit the mask key, and you see nothing's happened yet, but on the display here on the control panel, we have controls for left, right, top, and bottom. And I'm just going to turn the knobs, and you can see we are masking out. And look, there I am behind it, just like I promised. So we are gonna mask it right to the edge of the numbers. And if you had something to key that was like perfectly rectangular and that's all you had to do, that's all you really need to do. If you don't need to actually Luma key or Chroma key something, if you just had to mask it to get down to the rectangular portion at the lower third or whatever, you can do that and just cut it or dissolve it on and off just like that. But we want to key out this clock. We want to be left with just the white numbers. So we've masked out everything around the outside. I'm going to hit Luma key again. And we have some new options here. Clip, the first option, is pretty much, you're pretty much setting the minimum value that the switcher will allow to go on the screen. Anything below that minimum luminance value, it'll key out. So if I start turning this knob, look at that. And right about there you go. We're left with just the numbers and the hands of the clock because they're the lightest portions of the video signal. And I can turn this on and off. I can actually go into, let me see, let's do that and go into effect mode. And we can perform transitions on it like any other video source, even though it's keyed out. Choose another one here. There you go. That's a pretty cool one to use in this case. How about that? And if I go to, I forget what the code was. I think it's 9201. We'll talk about what I'm doing here in a minute. Nope, that wasn't it. There, I've got one effect programmed here. I'll explain what I'm actually doing in a bit, but this is just to demonstrate that we can perform effects on this like anything else. There we go. The old bingo shrink and grow effect that was originally on this switcher when I got it. Pretty cool, right? Now, let me press Shift and Luminance to bring the settings back up. I'll just show you what happens here. If I keep turning the clip up, eventually it just disappears completely. Let me go back into dissolve mode. The gain is, I mean, what it looks like it's doing on the surface is just changing the opacity of it. This knob's a bit dirty. But it's also sort of softening it as well. So you can see with the gain all the way up, I have a little bit of the plaid pattern showing through. And if I turn the clip up a bit more, that fixes that. But you can see there's almost a bit of a graininess to it. So by turning the gain down just a hair, I can turn the clip down a little bit, and it makes it just a little bit softer and a little bit cleaner looking. I can invert the key, which is exactly as it sounds. Now it's showing everything but the white portions. Here I am somewhere. And I can change what the key's fill actually is. Right now the fill is set to video. I can change the key to the border matte, so it's using the selected color for borders. So instead of the what's actually in the video, if I press matte and I select the border matte, I can change the color of that. I can make it any color I want. Look at that. It's pretty cool, right? Go back to our luminance settings. We can also make the fill the effect matte. Select effect, and it's the same deal. So you can set a color matte for not only the internal video generator, but also for borders and for effects like this when something is keyed out. So you can really customize your key. And I go back to my luminance settings, bring it back to video, and density quite literally is just the opacity. So there you go, we have luminance keyed a video source. And we'll do this more when we use our makeshift character generator in a bit. Let me go to the chroma key mode. So we're now in the chroma key mode. Our mask is still in effect, and chroma keying is way more difficult to do than luma keying. The conditions need to be way better chroma keying only works well when you have a very solid background and a very well-defined subject behind it. So I'm not going to be able, we'll be able to demonstrate chroma keying with our makeshift character generator, but we won't be able to demonstrate it with the clock here, and it doesn't even make sense because the clock has multiple colors. There's multiple shades of green, and there's even some yellow lines in that. But let's try anyway, just for funsies. So we'll bring the clock up, and let's see if we can chroma key it. Now, for the chroma key settings, there are quite a lot more. You've got clip, gain, hue, angle, which I don't even know how to describe that. And then there's more settings in the other pages. But if you look right here, we've got a little magic setting that says auto, and that's exactly what it sounds like. You can point the switcher to what the color of the background is, and it'll automatically choose all the best settings to key it out. If I press auto, you can see we get the full thing, and look at this, a little square comes up on the screen, and I can use the joystick. Look at that. Some of you were probably wondering about this joystick. We're finally using the joystick. And it's just like using the color picker in GIMP, where you can, like, average colors. I can change the size of this color picker, and I can adjust its position using the other knobs or with the joystick. So let's see if I can key out this lighter shade of green right here, and I'm going to press start. And as you can see, it did a horrible job, and you can see there's this horrific digital noise going on. Let me try and manually tune it here. And this knob is very dirty. There we go. Change the hue. That's almost kind of reasonable. I mean, not for professional uses, but let's try again. Let's press auto. Maybe I want to key out the white here. Shrink the box a little bit. And hit start. And it sort of worked. It did indeed key out the white parts. What about the wall? The wall is a pretty solid color. Maybe we can just get rid of the wall. And not really, because the numbers are the numbers and the hands on the clock are too similar in color. But if I had a green screen behind me and I was properly lit and the green screen was properly lit, this would end up working pretty well. But we'll be able to see it work when we do the our character generator demonstration in a bit. So that is the title keyer, and you use it to do upstream keying. You can also use it to do downstream keying. So on my delegation keys here, if I choose DSK fill, I will choose camera 2, which is the clock. And now if I hit this DSK button, it brings up the clock. And you can see we have a similar set of controls for the downstream keyer as we did for the title keyer. So I can hit luminance, and I can key out, I can perform keying rather on the downstream keyer, just the same as I did on the title keyer. Now the downstream keyer is simpler. For the title keyer, we were able to perform effects on it, like fancy transitions, just like we would with any other video source. But with the downstream keyer, all you have is this button which dissolves it in. I can change the transition rate of the downstream keyer, go a bit quicker, and there you go. Or I can make it instant, kind of like this faster dissolve. And yeah, the downstream keyer is very much separate from all the other digital processing of the switcher, so it has no way of performing any special effects. It's literally just take a video source, key it, throw it on the screen in either a cut or a dissolve. So that's the downstream keyer, and we will use this a bit more as we go on. Alright, so I've got my makeshift character generator set up on input 3, and you can see it's literally just a Windows XP computer with MS Paint, and what I've done is I've made a black background and the Maritime Girl in white letters. So, what do we do? So what a real character generator would do, a character generator is, today, it literally usually is a Windows-based computer that runs special software, and it has special hardware in it to output a television-grade video signal. In the standard definition days, it was a standard NTSC or PAL SDI video signal. Today, it's a 1080i or 1080p or 4K or whatever HD SDI video signal, and it's literally just a Windows computer with a special video card and special software to output text or graphics to that video card. And so I don't have one of those, although we have an old standard definition character generator at the station. I don't remember if it works or not. If it is, I may have to see if I can get my hands on it. But right now we've got standard PC with MS Paint, and of course I'm running the VGA output into a Kramer VP502XL scan converter, taking the S-video from that into the Pro Max DA Max Plus converter, and then taking the SDI output of that into the switcher. So what do we do? Well, here's my wonderful face, and I want to downstream key the Maritime Girl on it. So we want our DSK fill to be camera 3, and if I just turn the DSK on, it's actually almost set up for it. Let me go into the mask settings. Let me go into the luminance settings. Sometimes it's easier to mask if you just turn the Luma key off. And now if I go into the mask settings, I will adjust my mask rather. There you go, it's a pretty good mask. Go into my Luma key, turn the clip, and there you go. Simple as that. We've got our title on the screen. Now, like we said before, the downstream keyer is very simple. It can only do Luma keying and masking, but it does have one other trick up its sleeve, which is this border setting. And if I press that, you can see it's added a little border underneath it there. See that? Really helps it pop a little bit. And we can choose the type of border. We can make it a stroke of the key, or a thin stroke, drop shadow border, or what they call a double border. And I can choose where that double border is. Same for the normal drop shadow. And there you go. That kind of helps it a little bit. That's pretty nice. And yeah, what I was saying about character generators, a real character generator will do key and fill type keying. We talked about that in the first video, where the character generator sends two signals. A fill signal, which contains the graphic itself or the text itself, and then a key signal, which is a black and white signal saying here's what you key out, here's what's not keyed out, and here's any partial transparencies. We don't have that luxury right now, so we're just doing really simple luminance keying. But yeah, the border works pretty well. So let me turn that off, but now let's do this with the title keyer. Title 1 source, we want camera 3, put it in title mode. That's not what I wanted. Oh yeah, when you're in, okay. you can tell this video is not going to be quite as refined as the first one because we're getting into more advanced stuff now. So when you're using the downstream keyer, like I said before, it's separate from the switcher. So you've got your program, you've got your preview, and there's your preview, just like that. And your downstream keyer is just an extra layer on top of that. So if I go into title mode, I want my background to be my face, and I want the foreground to be camera 3. And the title 1 source also set to camera 3. So I cut that in. We're in chroma key mode, chroma key, this is probably good enough to work with chroma key, but let me do luma key first. Set the mask up. And there you go. And to my eyes, let me turn that off. So the downstream keyer is a little bit cleaner looking to my eyes. Although it could be that I just need to play with these controls a little bit more. But let's do that. So this is using the title keyer, and of course because we're using the title keyer has access to digital video effects, whereas the downstream keyer doesn't. So we can do stuff like that, stuff like this, right? And the title keyer also has a bunch of other functions, which are these 4 keys highlighted in blue. So the first one, if we hit edge, ooh, look at that. So there's different types here. So let me go into shadow mode, and it puts in a drop shadow. So the first type is a hard drop shadow. We can set the opacity of that drop shadow and the positioning of that drop shadow. And another type is it calls it Fanta. I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's literally this fancy animated effect, and there's a bunch of different kinds of Fanta that you can choose. There's fire, water, fairy, blossom, snow, bubble, comet, and whoops, that's the downstream keyer. And yeah, it just all the same effects apply. Oh, and my screensaver kicked in. There we go. So yeah, those are the edge effects. Kind of funny. And then we have a trail mode. Look at that. How crazy is that? So in trail mode, when you perform animation on the key, it does these cool trail effects. So there's a hard trail. The fill is set to rainbow, you can see, which I think looks awesome. We can adjust the duration. Wow. Crazy. It's a bit of a retro effect. Let me do a no, that's just a wipe. I want a slide. That's pretty cool. And of course we can use the lever to animate it however we want, and the trail follows along. Yeah, so you can trail it with itself. You can trail it with whatever you have selected as the border matte, solid color, or the effect matte. Or it can do, oh, random must be like random digital noise, apparently. there you go. The rainbow's pretty sweet. And you can actually change like the cycling of the colors for the rainbow using this knob here, like what colors are visible. Fanta, that looks pretty rad as well. And you can choose what type of Fanta. Although, oh, fill. Yeah, so now it's doing a self-fill, but also using a Fanta. Pretty cool. And then we have a border, so we have other border effects here. I can see I've got a little speck right there that was missed by the mask, so let me mask that again. So I'll hit Shift and Mask, and I'll just fix that up, just like that. And we go Shift, Edge. Pressing Shift and then pressing one of these other keys brings up the settings for that function without turning the function on and off. So it's kind of useful that way, because of course if I just hit Edge, it turns it off completely. So let me see, can I change? There we go. So an effect that I kind of like is I go Effect Matte, and I want to make that matte. I just want to make it black. I kind of like this effect because in the 1990s, ATV, the Atlantic Television System, now CTV Atlantic, here in the Maritime Provinces, in the 90s, their supers actually looked like this. It was white text with this thick black drop shadow, and it had red, green, and blue bars underneath it. So it must have been an Arial font, just like this. So that's kind of a cool way to sort of replicate that. So that's pretty much everything with Luma keying, with the downstream key and the title keying. But let's turn that off, and let's make this text green, and let's make the background blue, and we'll just fill in the letters here. Alright, so we've got green, something we want to key that's green on blue, so we got to key out this blue color. So this is where the chroma keyer comes into effect. So we'll key in our title. Actually, the Luma key still works because the blue is darker than the green, but we'll go to chroma key here. We'll turn our edge effects off, and our mask still works just the same. Maybe I'll tidy up the mask a little bit, just like that. Go back to our chroma keyer. We're going to do this automatically, so we hit auto, put our square somewhere in the blue, and hit start, and there it is. We've chroma keyed our thing here. And actually, maybe a better way to demonstrate this is if we have something that's more than one color. So maybe we do like that, and there you go, just like that with the chroma keyer. Because if I tried to do this with the Luma keyer, Go back to Luma key. Yeah, it still works. Somehow the blue is darker than everything, so the Luma keyer still kind of works. But I think the chroma keyer does it a little bit cleaner. But there you go. Oops. There, that's what I meant to do. Excellent. So, I have to change the tape in my VTR here, which is recording the program feed for you guys. But then I'll set up some other demonstrations. Help! I'm being harassed by the Microsoft Windows flag. Just that clip a little better. There you go. What else have we got? Oh no! I'm stuck in a never-ending world of pipes. Alright, now let's finally get to this 4-digit pattern number here. What does that mean, and what was I doing earlier when I was punching numbers into it? Well, as I've said many times in this video and in the last, this switcher has a rich catalog of effects. And when I say rich, I mean thousands of built-in permutations of effects. So many effects that they are each assigned a 4-digit number that you need to punch in to do stuff. I can actually go into the computer here, and here is the catalog listing in the manual of all the effects. So for example, a clock wipe is effect number 104. So let me push, oops, cancel that. So I have to press set next to pattern number, and I hit 104, enter, and oops, I have to be in effect mode. There you go, a clock wipe for a clock. And I can reverse it, goes counterclockwise, or I can go normal reverse mode, or it goes back and forth. Now, for not only these effects that are assigned a number, but for the for the normal effects, so to get the effects assigned to the keys here, I hit direct pattern, and then I punch in the effect I want, and there you go. For a lot of these effects, let me just go back to 104 again, these blue keys also come into effect. So for example, if I turn on the border and transition, there you go, we've got a border. And I can adjust the thickness of that border. I can make it a soft border, or in the case of this particular transition, it actually makes it a soft clock wipe. Let me turn the border off, and I can adjust the softness. Let me go just stop it right there, and I can adjust the softness, oops, adjust the softness of the clock wipe. Turn border on again, and as with before, when we turn soft off, we can adjust the color of the border using the mattes function, and we want to adjust the border matte, and I can adjust the color of that border, maybe make it green to match the clock, maybe like that. There you go. And of course the same rules apply that we saw in the first video. I can change the transition rate, hit set, make it really fast, or make it really long. What other wonderful things do we have here? 324, what's that? 324. There you go. Some of these, oh there we go, how about a matrix wipe? Let's try 754. There you go, that's kind of cool. Give it a, giving it a border is kind of interesting. It does have a soft function that actually looks pretty cool. And for some of these effects, there are adjustable parameters. You can see for these ones I'm scrolling through right now, it says no adjustable parameter. See if we can find one that has adjustable settings. There we go. What is this? Okay, it's almost looks like a maple leaf. It's kind of a maple leaf wipe. Do we have a star wipe? We must have a star wipe. Yeah, 27. There you go. And here's the star, The Price is Right. And we can make it soft. Actually, Price is Right probably had like a, probably would have turned down the softness a bit. And would have made the color maybe something like that. Oops. There you go. And we have adjustable parameters here. Right now it's showing the matte settings, but if I hit pattern adjust. So what kind of settings do we have here? We have aspect, angle, and rotation. So we can actually rotate it. Angle also seems to be rotation. And aspect is the aspect. And if we've bunged up all the settings, we can reset it by hitting initial page. And we're back to normal. So there you go. And as before, let me key in that clock again. As before. And something like that. And of course we can perform all these effects on something that's keyed. And then there's effects here that aren't necessarily for transitioning for one thing to another. There are effects in here for performing effect on a video source, be it in the foreground or what I've just done here in the background. So if I make, so this is kind of weird because you can see the terms foreground and background are kind of reversed, because the background is me, but I'm kind of on top of this background, which is on the foreground bus. Anyway, but you can see here's an effect that kind of performs a mosaic effect on whatever I have selected on the preview bus, and then it puts in this little circle what's in the program bus. And I can actually adjust this mosaic effect. We have something called Y and C, which means Luma and Chroma Modify. What on earth could that be? So that's 1030. That's kind of cool. Let me put me in there. There you go. Here's an interesting effect, number 1108. I'm in a heart now. And we get rotation options here. We can rotate it on all three axes. Change the perspective. And once again, I can turn edge on, and look at that, I've got a drop shadow now. I can do a Fanta drop shadow. If I press the soft button, I get a soft drop shadow, or I can turn it off and just get a soft edge to the heart. You can see there's so many possibilities of what you can do. There's really no sense of me showing all of them, so I'm just doing my best to show you some cool ones and some ones that might actually be used on TV. Not that you might actually use something like this on TV. Yeah, trail doesn't do anything because it's not actually moving. I can do, let's do this one. Ooh, let's turn these off. So you get a slide one box effect. And if I bring my one box up, I can put a border on it. I can soften it. And something I haven't showed yet is a beveled edge effect. Now, just for the sake of making this easier to demonstrate, oh, I can't move this any further. Oh, that's interesting. Doesn't even... There we go. I just want to put my box in the center. Beveled edge. So a beveled edge is a cool effect that modern switchers don't really do anymore. I don't know if it came out of style. I think it's elegant. But if you were watching TV in decades past, you definitely saw an effect like this, where it just bevels the edges of it. Now, can I potentially... No, I can't put this on a perspective. Let's see. Let's find something that puts a perspective. Let me find something that puts this one box effect on a tilt, and that'll kind of help show the beveled edge effect. Okay, I found an effect that does a tilted one box. And you can see I can adjust everything. Some modern switchers won't even do this. They won't tilt something on all three axes. But something cool I just want to show you, can also use the joystick and move it around. And this particular effect just fades it in and out. And I can use the knob here and adjust the size of the whole thing. So I've got my tilted one box, and this is where you might do a beveled edge, just because it's kind of a neat effect. Maybe I won't tilt it quite that aggressively. Maybe I'll do something like this. And go to my beveled edge. You can adjust the width. You can adjust the type of bevel. Give you the right type of effect you're going for. And your bevel intensity, which is basically the opacity of the bevel. There you go. Put a border on it just the same. Can make it a soft border. And I can give it edge effects like this drop shadow. And there you go. Kind of a nice, elegant one box effect, although I don't know how often you would do an effect like this today. But if you were doing a public affairs program, you might have, let me see, let's make this 0. You might have something like this where the host is talking, and you might bring up a background that has something to do with what you're talking about, and then the host is in a little window, and then you might use your downstream keyer to key in things down the right side of the screen here, like bullet points or something. So that's how you do that. And of course I'm using the you've seen me using the color matte generator for backgrounds here, but really I could just as easily make some other video source as the background. Doesn't matter. So let's talk about making custom effects. Now, I've shown you a custom effect many times. When I got this switcher, we used this switcher for years, however long we had it for our bingo program, and we had a custom effect programmed into it. So custom effects are stored in the 9000 series of pattern numbers, and there's different sections. Like the 9100 series are for transitions between sources, and the 9200 series are for just doing like a one box effect, or it might be the other way around. So I need to find, let's just for example go to 9100 here, and there, I actually made this one. This is a simple one box shrink effect, which we'll get back to. This one seems to have no movement. And yeah, so some effects, there's actually no animation at all. It just puts something on the screen, and that's the way it is. Like, there's no transition to be made or animation or anything. Right, so this is the old bingo transition that we did to bring the host up to full screen, and when it's time to play a bingo game, they shrink down with this kind of cool little tilt effect. Now, this actually isn't the original one. I actually remade this because I factory reset the switcher, and that erased all the custom stuff that was programmed into it. There were a lot of other custom effects that were programmed into this thing, some really funny stuff, but it's all erased now. So how did we make this custom animation? Well, if you are savvy with video editing using something like Adobe Premiere or some other high caliber digital nonlinear video editor, you might have used some of its functions of whatever program you use to animate stuff, picture in picture or whatever. And when you do something like that, you make great use of what are called keyframes. And on a hardware video switcher, it's actually just the same. An animation like this is made using keyframes. So to make our own custom effect, first we need to choose a pattern number, either one that has nothing stored in it, as I have here, or one that you don't mind overwriting. And in this little display up here, it says 1 and 0. 1 is the number of keyframes currently in that effect, and the number on the right is just what keyframe we're currently on. It says 0 because we haven't even started editing it yet. So to begin creating or editing this effect, we hit the edit button. So I am now on keyframe 1 of 1, and I want my first keyframe to be a full screen, just like you see right now. So that keyframe's fine, we don't have to change anything. So I'm going to hit insert to make a new keyframe, and I'm now on keyframe 2 of 2. So the first keyframe in this animation, we're going to shrink it down a bit and move it maybe about there, and the bottom right corner sticks towards the viewer a bit. So maybe something like that. And I'm going to hit enter to store that keyframe. I'm going to hit insert again. We're now on keyframe 3 of 3, and we are going to make it flat again. So turn our rotations to 0, and I'm going to slide it over a bit more like that and hit enter. I'm going to press edit again to exit editing mode, and let's see how this looks when I execute it. Okay, that's not so bad. You can see it's very harsh though. It does hard transitions between keyframes. But we can fix that. Here where it says path, it's currently set to linear. If I change that to S-linear, I'm not sure what the S means. It may mean spline linear, because what it looks like it's doing is it's doing a linear start and stop on each keyframe, but it's doing spline interpolation from one keyframe to the next. But if I hit path again, we now have spline. And there we go. That's something we're looking for. But you can see it kind of, when it gets to here, it kind of grows back a little bit, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to hit edit again, and we can use the down and up keys to choose the keyframe we want to edit. And I'm just going to shrink it up a little bit, hit enter, hit edit. Let's see now how it looks. That's not bad. So we've made an effect. Now let's go really crazy. Let's go edit again, and there's more pages of settings here, so I can adjust the positioning using the knobs instead of, wow, that second knob really is dirty. Look at that. I can change the positioning using the knobs instead of the joystick. And there's a keyframe duration option, and that's basically how long it takes to go from one keyframe to the next, and you can set that for each keyframe. Let's just go crazy with it for a minute here. Let's do that, and we'll insert a new keyframe, and maybe we'll have it over here, and we'll make we'll make it really big, and insert another keyframe, and we'll do that, and let's make it like that, and then whoops, enter that, and insert another keyframe, and maybe it's something like that. Enter, insert another keyframe, and maybe we'll just make it really tiny, like maybe something like that. Enter, insert, do something like that, enter, and is that it? Yeah, that's it. We can have 8 keyframes. Alright, are you ready for my masterful effect here? Here we go. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's so funny. This reminds me, if you've ever seen the Red Green Show, I loved it as a kid. In the early seasons of the Red Green Show, when Harold was kind of the director of the show, I don't know if they did it for the whole first season or just the first few episodes of the first season, but Harold wore this sort of keytar style video switcher, which didn't look anything like a video switcher. It had a terminal keyboard on it and stuff, but he would make effects like this happen to demonstrate his technical prowess. But yeah, there you go. We've made an effect, and likewise we can go to another blank effect here, and maybe I just want to make a simple one box effect. So we go edit, and maybe I want this to be right here, and maybe I want to do that and have a beveled edge, and maybe I want enter that, and I want the second keyframe to not have the rotation, and I want the X position to be 0 and the Y position to be 0, and make it a bit bigger, and enter that, and how does that look? There you go. A nice simple effect. Maybe I want a drop shadow on that. Maybe not quite that thick of a drop shadow. There you go. Nice simple effect. I could spend forever showing you guys different permutations of the things that you could do. So I'm going to show you one more thing, and I'll set it up in real time here. So what I need to do is go into my character generator here, which is powered by MS Paint. So if you're a fan of the Computer Chronicles like me, what I'm going to set up here may look a little familiar. Coming up next, and let's put it down at the bottom. So I created an effect here. So I have this simple, whoops, we want our background to be the color matte. I have this simple shrink and grow effect. And what Computer Chronicles might have done, they would have had a solid color background, but I think the grid, the squares, make it look a bit more 80s. But they would have had an orange border and the bluish background, or maybe purplish. And then let's use the downstream keyer. We want our keyer source to be the computer, and let's just do that. Fix our mask. And let's put a border on it. Let's put this kind of border on it. And let's just use our character generator to move it around here. Like that. And yeah, when Computer Chronicles went between, transition between segments, they'd shrink it down and put up something like that. It wouldn't actually be coming up next. It would be like a description of what was coming up next. And they would hard cut to the next thing, and they would simultaneously turn off. I think what they would do is grow the box over top of the key, although I don't have that capability, so I could just press these simultaneously and get the same effect. There you go. Now, if you want to see me be really industrious, I just did something silly off camera. I took the other SDI program output and I ran it into the fourth SDI input. So I'm using the switcher's own program output as an input. And so what I should be able to do here is, if I bring up the color matte and bring up the downstream key, and I set the memory to input 4, and then I freeze the memory should now contain the color matte with that key. So if I turn off the downstream keyer and I go to memory, there it is. It looks kind of like junk. I wonder if I turn on frame mode if it'll look better. So let's try that again. Freeze and go to memory. That looks a little bit better. So now, if I do, if I choose memory as my background, now I'm growing my box over top of the text, like Computer Chronicles might have done. I don't actually remember the details, but this looks a bit more like something you might have actually seen on TV in the 80s and 90s, where the box is growing over top of the text. No fancy keying tricks required. I just ran the program into an input, froze, basically brought up the background and the key and froze it, and now I'm just doing my box over top of that frozen image. There you go. A couple of more things, final things that I just want to show. The lighting button is only used for a select few transitions. I have a transition here, like I'll just show what it looks like without lighting effects, and if I turn lighting effects on, you can see there's a little spot of light that shines across. So very nice, and I can make that a line or a plane of light, and I can set the intensity. Very nice. The editor and GPI buttons, which just default to on when the switcher is turned on, these are used if you have an edit controller hooked up to the switcher. I have an edit controller. I think I can make it work with this switcher. I hope I can anyway. And if I can do that, then someday we will demonstrate that edit controller and we'll edit a YouTube video using A/B roll editing. That would be pretty cool. And then these three buttons here, learn, recall, and hold input, they are used with the snapshot function, which is a way to just save the state of the control panel. So if you had like a few shows that always use the same effects, you could just save a snapshot for each show, and then the state of the control panel and what pattern is selected and everything is all ready to go just by recalling that snapshot. And then the location button is used to enable the joystick and the size knob in certain situations. And this key, DSK Preview, puts the downstream keyer on your preview monitor if you have one connected. So it's a way to preview your downstream key, make sure everything looks good before you actually put it on the air. Well everyone, that's finally all there is to show of the Sony DFS-700 video switcher from 2000. I know that this part has not been nearly as well structured as the first video in this series. It was really easy to kind of logically lay out how to demonstrate all the basic stuff. But once you get into the advanced functions, it gets a little messy because there's so much that this switcher can do. You really are limited only by your imagination when you use one of these. And you don't necessarily have to be a weirdo like me that owns a ton of vintage standard definition video equipment to get enjoyment out of one of these. I've been reading recently about amateur television. That's an actual television signal that's generated on the amateur radio bands, and it turns out that like the most common frequencies for amateur television to be broadcast on are actually within the analog cable band. And so you can use a cable modulator like I've got on the shelf here that I've shown in a previous video, and you can amplify that with a linear amplifier to broadcast amateur television if you have an amateur radio license, which I do. But it turns out that the very, very few amateur radio operators who are interested in amateur television, they'll get a video switcher like this, or usually a smaller, simpler one, and they'll use those to spice up their amateur television broadcasts with effects and titles and stuff, and that's kind of cool. People also use these to create video art. I didn't really do that today, but I'll show you a picture I took of myself that's now my Facebook profile picture. I used the keyer on this combined with the color matte generator, and I managed to get this really neat effect that I really like. And you can do some pretty wild video art on one of these, and Cathode Ray Dude demonstrated that a little bit with a switcher on his video about video switchers, which I also recommend you watch if you enjoyed looking at this switcher. If you want to get one of these, well, obviously it might be a little hard to buy one online because you have the big and heavy processor unit. There are a few Sony DFS series switchers on eBay. Most of what you'll see on eBay, there's tons of people selling just the control panel, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if they got both parts but didn't realize they went together and couldn't sell just the processor unit, and they chucked it, and now they're trying to sell just the control panel, or did they just get a control panel somehow? I don't know, but there are tons of people on eBay selling just the control panels for these switchers. And one of them actually had the audacity to say tested working, so I actually sent a message to them and said, hey, do you have the processor unit? If not, can you tell me how you tested the control panel since it requires the processor unit? I'm still waiting for a response to that. So yeah, beware, you'll find lots of control panels for sale on eBay, and it's just the control panels. There are a few complete switchers. Expect to pay a few $100s for them, and $100 or more for shipping just because of the size and weight of the unit. I can recommend a couple of more suitable switchers if you would like to play with one of these, but perhaps you're just not as lucky as I am in getting a large unit like this. There are two switchers I can recommend. One of them is a series of switchers. That's the Panasonic WJ-MX series of switchers. The WJ-MX10, the WJ-MX12, WJ-MX50, there's a few of them. They are portable switchers, so there is not a separate control panel and processor unit. It's all in one box. I'm not sure if they were prosumer or professional grade switchers. I suspect that they certainly could have been used professionally in field productions by like community television stations. But they are cool, compact little switchers, well built. Cathode Ray Dude demonstrated one on his channel as well. They do keying. At least some of the models have a dedicated downstream keyer. Some of the models actually have a built-in audio mixer as well, so it's a true complete portable unit, video and audio, and you don't need to genlock. You can if you want, you don't need to. They just have composite and S-video on them and RCA jacks for audio, and you don't need to genlock, so they interface super easily with consumer equipment, and they have quite a few effects on them as well, quite a few transitions and keying and some really gaudy effects and the like. So they're also popular for just playing around with vintage video equipment or producing video art. The other option I can recommend is the Videonics MX1. CHCO TV, the TV station I worked for, we started with a Videonics MX1. We got it in, I think, maybe a year or two after we started in the mid-90s. The Videonics MX1 is a prosumer grade piece of equipment. It, once again, just does composite and S-video, and it's not even BNC. I think the composite inputs are actual RCA jacks. So they can interface with consumer equipment. Once again, no genlocking required. I don't believe it has a dedicated downstream keyer, but it does do keying. At the very least, it does chroma keying. And no audio mixer built into the Videonics. But they do have a few effects. I think it can also do a one-box effect, as the Panasonic can as well. And you can find, once again, if you're lucky, you can get a Videonics MX1 for under $100, and it's a really small unit, so shipping will be cheap as well. But yeah, those are two options for video switchers that I can really recommend. So there you go. As for what I'm going to do with this thing, I would really love to try and work its effects into my YouTube videos. Now granted, I'm not doing as many standard definition YouTube videos as I used to. I've really gotten quite fond of using my phone, which I'm doing right now, but there will still be ones time to time, and where I think I can tastefully work in effects, like to transition or somehow, that's what I'll do. But it has been so fun learning about this thing and demonstrating its effects for you guys. And also, as with so many things I've covered on this YouTube channel in the past, this is the first YouTube video demonstrating how to use one of these. There's a couple other videos of these. They're like 30-second long videos that don't show anything. I've already had at least one person comment on the first part and say, hey, I own one of these. Really great to see how I can make use of its capabilities. And that's fantastic. That's exactly what I want. Aside from just demonstrating something for those that are curious, I hope it can also be a great reference for those who actually own this switcher or one like it, just to show how you can really make use of all the functions. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. I know this video was long and not quite as tightly structured. The first part was long as well, but there's just so much to demonstrate. I really did do my best to try and condense what I could show you without comprehensively going through every permutation of what was possible, and I hope I did a satisfactory job. But it has been such a pleasure showing this to you guys, and I thank you very much for watching and supporting the channel as always, and I'll see you next time.